First thing I want to point out that a lot of people apparently have not noticed, and this is kind of important, is that this metal panel here and this metal panel here are actually sitting on top of this panel on the back of the phone. So when we put this back together, this goes first and then these two sit on top of it. And my understanding is if you flip these around down here, because they're layered one on top of the other, you can end up having problems with the home button. And keep in mind, this home button is very sensitive. It's a very high precision piece of equipment, so you've got to get everything just right on it. We're going to start by switching back to our tri-lobe screwdriver, and we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 screws that are going to come out. So we'll go ahead and start with those. And again, I'm just going to put a very small downwards pressure until I can feel that the screw is broken free. And once I do that, it should unwind without any problems. All right, once you have those screws out, we can go ahead and remove this metal panel from the back and make sure that you don't bend this at any point in time. That can cause some problems too. Now, one of the issues with this home button is it has something to do with the design really, and I'm actually going to use a playing card and some tweezers here in a second, but here's one of the things about this. If you remember, in the past, you could kind of lift off the connector cable and unplug it, the long flex cable that goes behind the screen. You could unplug it from the cable where it's attached to the home button pretty easily. Well, they've changed this so that the cable that's underneath here, if you lift up on it, you're going to lift both the part that you're trying to remove and the part that it is attached to. So it's not glued down, so to speak here, and you have to kind of get in between and be able to separate these without placing any stress on the cable. So this is the very sensitive part of this phone. If any of this stuff gets damaged here, you're going to have problems. Also, there is something they call the turtle IC, and that's going to be this little chip right here. So this does not tolerate any kind of flexibility. So if you are to peel off this cable, because it does have adhesive underneath it down here, and you place stress on this little integrated circuit, it is going to damage the connections underneath it, and then you will have some problems with your home button. So what is the best way to approach this cable? Well, we kind of want to be very, very careful, of course. And at the same time, while we're holding it, I actually had a better tool for the job here. I don't like the spudger because it's not precise enough, and I don't particularly love the tweezers. But I had another flat tool laying around. I would like to do this under the microscope, but I'm not sure that's going to be possible. So I'm going to try to get on top of the lower piece here, because this flex cable is going to open up from here and go that direction. Okay, so what I want to do is be able to stabilize the piece underneath it. And of course, I don't want to put any pressure on it. I just want to kind of hold this in place and then be able to get underneath this cable and very carefully just kind of lift it so that it detaches. So hopefully you saw that that actually unplugged. And all I did is I just kind of held this in place. I'm not pushing down. I was just holding it in place right behind where the connection is, get under the cable itself and lift up very carefully. That way we don't end up putting any stress on that long flex cable, which can be replaced, but really it's just one more step you're gonna have to take. Now, probably the trickiest part here, let's get the camera refocused, and that is going to be getting underneath this cable, because again, if we aren't careful, if we flex this little piece, it's going to put pressure on that integrated circuit underneath, and that's what we want to avoid. So I've seen this done a number of different ways, and you're welcome to try any that you think will work. But in my experience, this is going to do the trick. First of all, remember we have this cable here that is kind of on top of what we're going to get to. So you can see if we go right down in here, this guy's kind of in our way, so to speak, okay, because it's laying right on the top of that. So for that reason, I'd recommend you go ahead and pull off the rest of this panel so you don't have to deal with that. And we should have an easier time folding this flex over so that it's not quite so much in the way. And as I said a minute ago, what I'm going to do is take some 99% rubbing alcohol. I'm just going to dip the very corner of my playing card into a small amount so that that will help us work against the adhesive. And I may apply some additional heat here momentarily, but most of the time, if we very carefully go right underneath this cable, you'll find that it slides off pretty easy. Just take your time, go straight underneath and lift it up. And once you do that, we'll have a small amount of adhesive here on the front, but if you push on the home button cable, the home button should fall right out. And you'll see that we kind of kept this thing nice and straight, so it never really got bent, and I believe that that's where the majority of the home button damage or home button complications are coming from, and that is putting stress on that little chip right in there. And there are some companies out there that are already manufacturing tools to fix that. So again, I think that's where a lot of the problems are happening.